I know, I can see you too. It's exciting. All right, welcome to the Big Story Podcast. I'm Alex Morrissey.
If you can see me, I'm Gary Dufner.
It's true, he is. And today we have a very special guest, Dan Price. Dan, we're here to talk about, giant hominids and martial arts.
Let's do it. Thanks for having me on, fellas. Appreciate being here today.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah, we reached out to you, I guess, a little while ago when you were in the midst of your last Kickstarter, and you were like up to your eyeballs and like, listen, like I can't take a minute more time off from work than I already have, or I will be, homeless. So
right.
I was like, yeah, I get that, buddy. My creative director and group supervisor, i.e. my lovely wife, is like, so when is this Kickstarter over? Kind of response. So,
okay. When are you getting the life back?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, my Lord. Yeah.
It's one of those things. And like, hey, sorry to the folks watching this now, because of course we're in the future, but we're talking in the past. I don't know how this time travel works, but this is Tuesday of like after Christmas. So we're not running a Kickstarter. Thank goodness. We're kicking back.
It's fun. It was fun. We
did it. We made $18,000. It is amazing how much money everyone pledged in that last 24 hours. So thank you to all the people. So now I've put that out there in time travel world. So it's going to happen, right?
It has to.
I think that's how it happens.
You got to, you got to manifest it, right? Yeah, you got to manifest that, and put out the good juju, and the good juju will come back to you. And I thoroughly agree with that. So for sure.
So, you're like a dude who's like, does like jobs like with, companies, in your real world life, your Clark Kentness. And so like, yeah.
You have to put the glasses on.
Hold on, they're right here. Hold on. Go ahead, and then I'll take them off when you tell me the right moment.
Oh my God, it's a whole new person. Look at that.
Comic creator.
Anyway. All right. We were talking to a suit for a second.
That's right.
But yeah, and so, and your wall doesn't say advertising and marketing so much. It says all the right things like Batman and Doctor Who, all the good stuff. So how does a cat who handles marketing campaigns for companies, like, were you just reading comic books like as a kid and then somehow stumbled in the world of like, I got to make a living? Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly how it happened. I mean,
all right. Well, hey, it was great talking with you.
Yeah, take it easy. All right, leave on a high note like Costanza. I'm out.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've been drawing since I could crawl. Teachers recognized it, all of that, young. And I mean, so I've been, and comic books came around since I was about 8. And, then Image popped in when I was 16.
Okay.
And that changed everything, because now you could create your own characters and do your own thing. And that's so attractive to me. I mean, that was always like, I never really thought, who wouldn't want to draw Spider-Man when they were a kid? But like, I never thought I would go work for Marvel. I guess when I was young, maybe that was one of the thoughts. But as soon as Image came around, it changed everything. And I wanted to make my own characters and do my own thing. And so it kind of works out nicely. But I was a graphic designer. I went to college for graphic design and for creative writings for English. So so I use both of those things in my world of comics. And I use both of those things in my world in my day job, because I'm started as a graphic designer. I worked my way up I'm a creative director for a marketing group out of Dallas. And I work with, I have about 35 clients that I work with on my client list currently, that we're doing advertising, we're doing branding campaigns, we do event production, we do all sorts of great stuff, Zoom programming, you name it, we do all of that. And so, and I, in turn, we also run a magazine. So I actually write and edit a magazine as well. I'm one of the writers. So I take a lot of what I do in my day job and I apply it to what I'm doing in comics. I understand print schedules. I understand, how to time out all your contractors or other players that you have to work with. And, just I mean, lucky for me, it's me and Casey. You know, for the main portion of Bigfoot Knows Karate, Casey Allen, my co-writer, and he's a dream. He's just, thank you, Casey. But you know, the rest of it, you know, it's all kind of just change the name and it's all the same, like Clark Kent is Superman. I mean, seriously, all I'm doing is just kind of changing the labels and trying to apply that stuff to what I do in comics.
You know, it's super interesting you say that, dude, because like it made me think of like what, so I drew comics, you know, in the throughout the 90s. And then in the late 90s I ended up at a advertising and design school in Atlanta. And I went there to teach drawing, but eventually they like suckered me into teaching advertising and design work. And I was terrified because all I did was draw people having fights, you know, in city streets. And I was like, like, I don't know.
Give me that hot dog.
Like I had to like teach myself how to like, you know, understand like what the tenets of, you know, design and advertising were in a very short period of time. But what I ended up learning in myself was that everything is a process. Like I understood what I did was I was able to define my creative process in a very tangible way that I was then able to turn around and then help students develop their own creative process, not just steal mine, you know, like their own. And that was like a really interesting period because this is right when computers were sort of taking hold in the world. They weren't really the primary tool except for like page layout, but people were doing logos by hand and you know, but everything, like Photoshop, Illustrator, and Quark were like the necessary tools to get it into whatever the final stage was. But up to that point, it was all very hand done. And I was fortunate enough to learn all the stuff, but it was this really eye-opening period of going, oh, like I know how to do all this stuff because I know how to make a guitar. I know how to make a comic book page. I know how to make a costume, like, but they were all the same process. So what you're doing is like this, you know, you're taking that all apart and saying, well, I'm going to make a comic book the same way I make a logo for a company. Like, here's your brand bottom. Yeah.
Well, and it's first of all, Quark, oh my Lord, that just takes me way back. Cause I mean, but I learned, you know, I did my very first like magazine periodical work when I was like 13 at the school, at the intermediate school doing the newspaper. And so we did paste up like you were talking about before. So there's something, I mean, I'm 45, okay, just to put it in perspective. And there's something about living in the world pre-computers and internet. Yeah. And then having to grab that ball and run with it. It's not like my kids who grew up in the internet world. Yeah. They don't know what it's like. You know, I mean, we're the generation that they had to get it, grab it, understand it, and then make it part of our daily lives. Having that time. Fair enough. There is, but having that paste up experience and knowing physically what you're doing, conceptualizing that in the computer, they're two different things. And I think that's one of those experiences that I'm glad that I had that, that hands-on experience doing that, because I mean, I've worked in Quark. I've done, I mean, pre-Illustrator, I used to work in something called Aldo's Freehand. Sure. I've grown up with every edition of Photoshop. Yeah. So it's like, now it's like, you know, and I used to do my job as a graphic designer, but I'd come home and I'd draw with a pencil and a piece of paper to do Latex Avenger, you know, and draw those books back in the day. Mm-hmm. And when the moment I said, I'm not going to do this anymore, that there is no separation of church and state, everything that I apply as a graphic designer is coming with me to being an artist in a comic book scenario and vice versa. When I started doing that as a graphic designer, I used to get more jobs at the agencies because I became the comic book guy. They knew me that I could draw that kind of style and a lot of different types of that style. So, and so, I mean, hey man, go where the money is. Right. And totally. And now it's funny that we say that, but if you go and make an indie comic, you ain't going where the money is, you know, but it's like, but commercially it works really well. So, I mean, that's just kind of how I kind of see what, you know, the two different things and blending it all together. So
yeah, that's, I mean, I mean, that's the, like, I don't know. I mean, like, I remember when I was first dabbling in design, when I was teaching at the school, and the head of the design department is like, oh, you really got to like bring in that comic book feel into your design work. And like, I couldn't bridge the gap. Like I was very much like, okay, well, listen, I'm going to study design and it's all going to be very like Swiss and all these fantastic sort of like negative space uses and typography,
Right.
blah, blah. I mean, comics are a different thing, you know, and then like as the years go by, you kind of go, oh, okay, I can blur the lines. And you're right, man. Like an agency, the second an agency finds out you have this superpower of drawing comic books, they're like, oh, you know what? Because they keep pitching ideas that have some sort of comic book thing in there. They always do. They never have that secret weapon to say, oh, hey, here, by the way, here's what it's going to look like, or here's the thing. And it's like, so it's always been a great sort of like superpower to have when it comes to an agency.
Have you been to the Javits Center, right, for New York Comic Con or anything like that? Okay. So you know those gigantic escalators they have up the Javits Center. So I was working for an agency, okay, and they were doing this, and they did like testing equipment for like oil drilling, okay, like you kind of hit the laser and it would tell you how many pounds of oil are coming up at so much speed or rate, or I don't know. Okay. I mean, that's not my job. But they wanted to do this comic book related campaign that went over Twitter and all of this stuff. And it was like, oh no, or, you know, oh dang, or dang it, or I can't remember what it was, but they did this whole campaign and it was like photographs that I took and that I made them look like comics, you know, and it was like dogs eating their homework. And they're like, oh no, if we only had this on digital, we'd still have that information, you know, and, you know, that kind of thing. But it was this, all right, so back to the Javits Center. So they have those gigantic windows. They have those gigantic escalators. Those escalators were wrapped in that graphic up the escalators, you know, the windows, those 30-foot windows, you know, by 12-foot tall windows. I think that's the measurement. Those were all had that gigantic campaign all up the windows. And then the booth was all like pop-up posters or like cut out posters of the people going, oh no. And I mean, it was, they probably dropped 30 grand, you know, just in printables, just to cover the Javits Center with that show. And, you know, I mean, that's like, and if I was going to New York Comic Con to go promote my comic book, I have probably about, you know, $11 in the marketing budget. You know what I mean? It's just incredible to me. It's just incredible to me. So anyway, because I spent all my money on hotels and cable and all that stuff, right?
And your $11 sandwich. So
exactly.
So how did you get the like? I mean, like clearly you were really into comic books, but you studied, you know, graphic design and creative writing. But how did you were you like secretly in the back of your head saying, all right, well, I'm gonna use these skills. I'm gonna make a comic book. I'm gonna somehow figure out a way to make a comic book. Or was there a light bulb moment in your life where you're like, I love my job, but I really need to make a comic book? What is the thing?
Okay, so like I did when I was 30, I'll just skip ahead to when I was 30. 30 is when I did my very first comic book, completed full comic book. And it was one of those things that I'd always loved comics. I had been painting for a while, right? Okay, and doing like art for guys who need art in their house, kind of art, you know, for like the bachelor guy who has like the loft apartment with the leather couch and he needs something good to look over, you know, good looking to go over his couch. That was the kind of stuff I was doing. At least that's what I called it. Anyway, you know, when nobody was looking, I was like, it's art for guys who need art in their house.
So were you trying to make money that way, or
I was making money doing it. I mean,
did you want to draw? Did you want to paint that way, or you did it because
I was making money? I was just making money. It was just, you know, it was fun experimentation of texture and color and form and that sort of thing. It was very abstract, but I found my audience. You know, I mean, I had a couple of good niche audiences that were constantly buying from me, and that was one of them. You know, and so but I had a breakup, and I was tired of painting. I was like, I need to do my comic book. I got to do the comic book now. I just need a break from all of this. And I did the very first issue of Latex Avenger. And Latex Avenger was my first book. It was called, he had a sidekick named Spermicidal Foam Lad, and together they repelled crime 99.9% of the time, right? So I did that project for a few issues. But
you use them properly.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I did the first issue just as a lark. Okay, I've got that out of my system. Let's get back to painting now. And then like a couple years went by. I'm like, I got all these really funny ideas for this rubber-headed dude. You know, let's do some more issues. I did a few issues of that. And then another artist came in and took over the art responsibilities of that for me, and I just got to write, and I did that for a while, and then that rolled into we got found by a company called Hound Comics. They saw what we were doing and got us to do a book for them. Another creator owned called Masters of the Obvious, and that turned. And I wrote that. Bond drew that, and that was they had Dr. Biclops. He's got 2 eyes. The Visible Woman, you can't miss her. They flew around in a gigantic intergalactic space toaster called the USS Screensaver, and they fought like Darth Redenbacher and the My Little Jabronis and the Puggalos, and it was stupid.
So you don't like the Tick at all?
Yeah, no, very. You know what? It's funny. I got a lot of Tick, comparisons over the years. I accept them wholeheartedly. It's funny stuff. So sure.
Oh yeah, Ben is brilliant.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. And I loved that's just kind of how my mind works. And, but then I did a thing for the Stan Lee Foundation. We did a project called Excelsior, The Uphill Adventures of a Boy Named Stan Lee. And that was, we did that for like a 12-part webcomic. And it was cool. Stan Lee tweeted our comic every week. That's pretty neat. Cool. That doesn't get to happen to too many people. So, Bond, who was the artist who came on with me with Latex Avenger, and then we did Masters and Stan Lee together. He passed away, and that was hard. So I had to take a break for a while. There was a lot of reasons to walk away. I just got married. Bond passed away a little while later. A few other things. It was just kind of cumbersome in the industry. I was kind of burnt out, tired, and ready for a break. And then like a couple years ago, Drew Edwards started talking to me about doing a crossover with him on something. And then, we work on this here. You do a cover for me here on Halloween Man, do some interiors over there. And then, slowly kind of pulled me back in. I didn't realize I was getting pulled back in, but I was back in. And Bigfoot Knows Karate came out of that, and so my wife was basically saying to me during the pandemic, you're bored, the kids are grown, go have some fun, go make a comic book again. She had no idea what she was getting herself into. Once they'll talk with lawyers and PR people and all this shit, I'm on the phone. Can I say shit? I'm sorry if I can't cuss.
Oh
okay,
my God.
Cool.
You never say shit.
Yeah. All right. So I've been good so far. If you notice, I haven't said a bad word yet. So anyway, so she's like, are you having fun? Like, this is supposed to be fun. I said, I'm having a fucking blast. This is great. So it's been, so to answer your original question, which I barely remember what it is because I've been all over the place and how did this whole thing started? I just had to do it. It's just one of those things that you don't even, I did it for years. I took a break and found out that I needed to be doing this. And this book especially is different. There's no, I've got Casey with me, and Casey's phenomenal, but it was like the way this book was born was just, it was supposed to be originally a comedy, and it was supposed to be he, went to junior college, Bigfoot went to junior college, and all this other silly stuff that went on. And as the art started taking form in like 2018, 2017, 2018, the style just was not funny. It was far more serious, and it was just I don't know. And here we are. We got through the Kickstarter. We raised $7,000. I couldn't believe it. I was stoked. Yeah. We got 200 and something backers. It was amazing. So I'm just, and the book is at the printer right now. So
that's
thank
exciting,
you.
Man. That's super exciting. Yeah. It's interesting when you were talking earlier, and I think you're echoing it in a different fashion. But when you said, like, you were 16, an image comes along showing that people can put their own books out there that look just like, not that they look just like Marvel or DC, but the comic feels like a Marvel and DC comic. It's not, it doesn't feel like it's any less in value of quality.
Right.
And, it's an interesting thing because, how the indie market sort of hits you really kind of impacts your approach to comic books. So for Gary, like the indie market hits with, Matt Wagner's Mage. Like he sees that and he's like, this is it. Yeah. This is what I want to do. Now, I didn't see Matt Wagner's Mage early on. What I saw like, comic books like from Kamiko and Mike Grell and like, American Flag and all these, but these are all pros from Marvel and DC who are just doing their book elsewhere. So it didn't have a sense of like, well, this is an indie book. It just felt like a different, pro book with with a different label. And then by the time we were in art school, Dark Horse rolls around, and they're just like the creme de la creme. Like they made everything else look like they were just punks. And even Marvel and DC in so many sense. So it wasn't a matter of like, well, you can just make your own thing up and bring it to Dark Horse, because it seemed like, well, you needed to like win an Oscar and then go work for Dark Horse. Like it was like that kind of feeling. And then when you said 16 when Image came around, like, well, that's like 1992. But they were still doing Marvel in DC Comics. It wasn't until later on their run when they said like, hey, let's take Image and start putting out other books rather than just the 7 creators. And and it really was an interesting kind of turn. So much like that technology kind of hump we were talking about earlier, like the perception of when, like if you came of age when Image is putting out like great independent comic books, and you have a native understanding of digital technology, there's a sense of like, of course I can do this. But old wizards like ourselves, like Gary and I are like, so how do we do this when it comes to a Kickstarter? Like, I mean, it's an interesting kind of transition. So like, and you're a few years younger than us, so you have at least that much of a head start, in that respect. Like you had a cell phone possibly when you were a teenager, like, yeah. I mean, like we were lucky to have, a line long enough to extend from the kitchen and that I could close the door in my bedroom, that's
exactly.
That was technology. Oh, the cordless phone. Those were awesome.
The cordless phone was a game changer, because that means you didn't have to go stand in the far corner of the kitchen talking like this to your friends, because you don't want your parents hearing you what you're babbling on about. Sure.
Totally. So I mean, it's an interesting, it's super interesting. So, did you have, I mean, you said you had this sort of, I guess, outside sense of like, oh, I'd love to draw a comic, for Marvel or for DC when you were a kid. Like, what was the thing that like didn't sort of like inoculate you and like strip reality out of your mind, so you only chase that dream when you're young, and you actually had a practical approach to your life versus people who go off to art school to be like, I'm going to draw comics, and then the only skill set you have?
I did a terrible Reed Richards. That was what made me know that I'll never draw for Marvel, else I can't draw the bendy, stretchy guy properly. I could never get it right. Like, I mean, and I love the Fantastic Four. I mean, like, bar none, probably my favorite Marvel team of all time is probably the Fantastic Four.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I could never get Reed right. He always just looked warped and twisted and, in pain, or, I mean, like,
I think that would look really good for that comic. You should draw it.
Wouldn't it be great if that was like, like he can do this, but it hurts so much to use his powers. Like that would be such an awesome like way.
Or his powers are taking over him and he can't get normal.
See, it's funny you should mention the character feeling the pain of the stretching, because I've thought about that before, of like, if you had a stretchy character that felt every single muscle tear and shred, as he was doing it. I mean, like, like the character that never used his powers, I mean, like, what did Wolverine say in that first Marvel movie when Rogue says to him, does it hurt, when he makes his things pop out, and she's like, every time, I mean, it's like, I mean, I guess that would inhibit you from doing it very often, I suppose, but he's got a healing factor, so he'll live. But yeah, no, I think the not being able to draw, I just never I couldn't draw with the Marvel set style or the DC set style. I never felt like my stuff got to that level, whether it's the Perez burn over, era over at DC, or, I mean, and all the guys who went from Marvel to Image, I mean, they were all over the place, in terms of like the house style had gone to the wayside, I guess, more so, and they were doing their own thing. But like, even then, like, I never felt like I could measure up to doing anything that Marvel or DC would ever remotely want to have in their toolbox. But I find that now, like when I'm doing Bigfoot Knows Karate, like there is no, I'm not trying to draw to or react, to that realism based style that's so popular right now.
Right.
And man, hats off to every single artist who can do it. Amazing work. You're all incredible. I don't have those types of chops. I'm built for indie comics. I can make my weaknesses strengths in that world. You know what I mean? Like I can, with Bigfoot, I can use the way I do the artwork and the way I draw it. I mean, I draw with my fingertip. I mean, literally on my laptop screen, and yeah, and a mouse. My fingertip and a mouse. I don't use a stylus, and I work in Adobe Illustrator, and so it's like, so I don't even use like, I don't know. My workflow is a workflow of a graphic designer. I mean, it's all clipping masks and it's all, Bezier points, and I mean, it's
so interesting.
It's such a very different style. So I don't use things like I don't even know, Procreate or a Clip Studio. Yeah, I mean, I use Adobe software through Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign.
Yeah,
that's how I make my book.
That's so interesting, because I remember when I and a friend, and who's been on the show, Eric Dozier, who's a phenomenal concept designer for video games. This has got to be like 2000-ish, and we were both like in our apartments sitting in front of our computers and emailing each other. Like we were trying to figure out how to draw like on the computer. Like we had I think we both had, Wacom Intuos tablets, at the time.
Right.
And we were drawing, and like the most advanced way we could do it was, in Illustrator, but it was so hard for us to figure out, like, I mean, because we were creating it we're trying to create black and white artwork that sat on a different layer, and the coloring of these different pieces below, because this is before Photoshop had the multiply
layers and being able to move layers and
do a multiply layer. So there was
draw and the color underneath and all that.
Right.
Right?
So
Exactly.
You'd have to rasterize the thing into a 600 DPI bitmap, select all the white, get rid of that layer, then bring it back into the color range and have that be on the top. So it was like you could look through it, and it was such a hassle. And then like sort of as the years quickly progressed, you were able to do the multiply layers. But it's so interesting because you're saying you're doing it in Illustrator. I'm like, oh my God, because that takes me back to those sort of like those painstaking efforts to try to figure out using Illustrator as
that was early 2000s when it was hard to use those softwares.
It's brutal.
And then in 2003 or 4 is when they started getting layers and things. You're like, oh my God, I can do the work now.
Well, and it's amazing because like when I draw stuff, like I did this thing for a brewery, like it was labels, the superhero inspired beers for this brewery out of Houston. Okay. And so all the labels were like superheroes, and like one was like marijuana infused one, and it had this leafy lady, and things like that. I don't remember if it was merely marijuana. I don't remember, but she was all botanical. And so all these labels, and so they were like, we want a group shot. We want a group shot of all the characters, but we want their heads for the label. We just want the head in the circle for the label, and then we want a group shot of all of them together that we can put up in the brewery. Okay, cool. Well, so I'm drawing the group shot, right? And then the lady says to me, "Ooh, 3/4 of the way through the project, we're going to need all those as individual characters." Well, if you were drawing a group shot on a piece of paper, where would all that extra pieces be? They would be covered by the other person. I drew each character individually and layered them in. So when it came time, I just went, okay, output the 7 different layers out individually. So it's like, there's very few times that there's like that you don't get that shortcut in Illustrator. You really don't, like where you can just draw one on top of the other. Yeah, you can do that, but like there's always going to be danglers behind the other person anyway. You might as well just draw everything through, because you never know when you want to pull that back in somewhere else and use it somewhere else, frankly. And that's graphic designer prerogative. Honestly, you can't do that on a piece of paper. But I can take this thing from page 3 and I want that same expression to change just, panel 3, but panel 4, I want that same expression with just the eyes going,
Right.
I can just make that, I think one of the pages I sent y'all on page 6 or something like that. It's the same head in 2 spots. There it is. Yeah, it's the same head in both spots.
Yeah.
But I moved things around just a little bit, made him smile, and it changed the color, brought the opacity back up, and now we have a completely different image that is that they're the same, but they don't feel exactly the same.
I do the same thing with my comic.
Yeah,
there you go.
Same thing.
Yeah, I mean, in what is it, Mr. Miracle? I mean, Mitch Gerards was doing a wonderful job at repetition panel work, because that's the way that Tom was writing those scripts. So like that's the beautiful thing about this, the technology, rather than having to like either make a photostat and paste that up and then manipulate that, or redraw the thing but tracing it through. Like, I mean, there are ways to do it by hand, but it's way slower,
way faster to do it this way.
It's interesting. And you said something that's really a great thing to take into account as an artist. I don't know if everybody does this naturally, but there's a phenomenal conceptual artist, concept designer, artist, whatever you want to call him, Scott Robertson. And he does all these great vehicles. Like, he does amazing vehicles. He teaches at Art Center in Pasadena, and he has all these, but the phenomenal books full of these great just ideas. But his books are called, one of them is called Draw Through. And he's like this huge proponent of drawing through. So if you're drawing a car, you're drawing the part that you'll never see. Like, he's drawing all that stuff as the underdrawing. So you're putting it all there. So then when he's doing his final render over that, he knows where everything is going to be, and then you show what you need to show. So, I mean, that's kind of what you were talking about. Like, give yourself all that opportunity.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's like you're a draw, like when something's coming off the panel, right? Say my arm is coming off the panel and you kind of stop drawing right here, but like, then this part of the muscle, or this section you might kind of shrink it in a little bit. If you don't draw through all the way, it feels like you're going to shrink up this part of the forearm in comparison to what, you know what I mean? I found myself making those mistakes.
Yeah, your brain will play tricks on you when you're doing stuff, and it is sort of like more accurate to give yourself that space. Like, if you were drawing it by hand, throw a piece of paper off the side of your board and draw all the way out to the end, just so you're getting all your proportions correct, and
just the proportions right. Yeah, you don't have to get down to the knuckle hair, just get the segmentation down, just so everything works properly. That's
I like how you use the term knuckle hair because you have a Bigfoot. Because they
well, you got to have, I mean, come on,
lots of
lot of knuckle hair,
So how did you so what was the origin of Bigfoot Knows Karate for you? I mean, obviously, once he didn't go to a local community college, what was the
the whole thing's everything begins with a name. As far as I'm concerned, with characters, everything begins with a name, and I just love the way that rolled off the tongue. Bigfoot Knows Karate. I mean, that was just like, that just sounded good. So there was something there for me at the very least. And once I kind of got rid of this whole, he works at a mall, he goes to junior college and works at a corn dog on a stick in the mall and fights the sweatsuit mafia, senior citizens who do their laps in the morning around the, the food court. Once we got rid of all that and started doing just doodling the character, like there's this feeling of like, sadness and isolation immediately started to come to mind when I would look at him in the eyes. And, if you're Bigfoot and you're the only one of your kind and you have no purpose in the world because nobody believes you exist. I mean, how would that affect your psyche? How would that affect your soul? And on top of that, what if you were intelligent? And on top of that, what if you knew martial arts? What would that be? What would that do to that character? And so in the book, the first issue is kind of like a book in 4 acts, and the first act is more of like a character development, getting to know you type of section where we're getting to learn this character of introspection and deep thought, and he takes up for the underdog, and he saves this rabbit from who's going to be killed by a wolf, but in turn he becomes the hunter of the wolf. Okay. Who in turn then hunters are trying to hurt the rabbit, but he in turn hunts the hunters. So the first issue is actually called Bigfoot Knows Karate Chapter 1 Hunter Prey, where we play with the concept of anyone could be the hunter, that anyone could be the prey at any given time, just depending on your situation. And that theme runs throughout the issue. And so you've got this very, okay, and oh yeah, and these are the covers. This is regular, the red one's the regular edition, regular cover. That's my cover.
Mhm.
And then the variant cover is done by Matthew Skillern from Skillful Studios on Instagram. Great guy. And then we did, these two covers were for our deluxe editions, which were the, mine's the one on the left, and then Adam Caswell did the artwork on the right for the variant. And the deluxe edition actually has a director's commentary video that goes along with it. We can jump into that in a minute if you want to talk about that. But it was I lost my train of thought. Sorry, when we were talking about.
Oh no, you were talking about how in the first book it was the hunter and prey,
Yes,
sort of inversion, and how you're going to be moving the character, I guess, through different sort of thematic qualities of what this means.
Absolutely. The character is, the character is, his situation is changing throughout the issue, and he has to adapt constantly throughout it until we meet up with like our big bad, which is Kung Fu Thulu, which is our take on Cthulhu doing martial arts. So and he has a knockdown drag out with Kung Fu Thulu that is quite the battle. I would have to say it was quite the battle, but it was yeah. And then there's a good, nice, gnarly twist at the end, and we kind of think about it as Godzilla versus Kong meets Kill Bill.
Oh, very cool.
Is the best way I can describe the book on a one-liner like that. So
I like that. That's cool. That's a cool. I mean, it's always fun to comp title up stuff and figure out where you can kind of get the attention of people who think that stuff. That's cool. So now what's your planned story arc for this? I mean, are you?
Yeah, 5 issues for the main arc. Five issues for this main arc. But we've been really lucky. Like, people have gravitated to the character. Over the course of the time since I started working on it, we've had over 70 pieces of fan art has been sent to us, either by Bigfoot. Yeah, thank you. Amazing. I mean, it's just amazing. Like, either Bigfoot or Kung Fu Thulu, we're getting artwork from different people. I mean, it's been amazing, like just how much people have gravitated to the character. And so Adam Caswell, who did the variant cover of the deluxe edition, is actually coming on. I mean, his cover actually was fan art. I've got it here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was fan art, and he sent it to me, and I was like, dude, there is no way in God's green earth I can there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the Skillern cover right there.
Yeah.
And there's the Caswell cover right there.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they're amazing pieces of work. And so the Caswell cover, he is like, I've done this piece for you, and I'm going to mail it to you for free. I just want you to give you this as a gift. And I'm like, okay, that's ridiculous. So here's what I'm going to do. Why don't I pay you, and we're going to use this as a cover? Nice. Because look, I'm 45 years old. I'm a grown ass man, dude. I pay people for the work they do. You know what I mean? And
that's nice.
So you got to, I just feel like that's the way to do it. And Adam just became, Skillern did his cover, and I love it. It's amazing. And then Adam did his, and then I've got, and as Adam and I kept talking, he was like, I'd like to do some more stuff with you. Well, Casey and I, we both kind of agreed that, I mean, as much as it's a lot of work, and I would love to be able to pass the art chores off to someone. Casey's like, you got to stay with the 5 issues. You got to stay with the arc. You got to be the artist on this arc. And I said, okay, after 5, I'm done. Okay. I'm going to breathe for a while. So I'm going to do the first 5, and then, but Adam is going to do a side book for us. That's going to be kind of like maybe a 0 issue. I'm not going to call it that, but a little bit more of an origin into the Bigfoot character. And then we're going to do a book of short stories in between. So like, I'll do issue 2, then Adam's side book will come out between issue 2 and 3. Oh, then we're going to have a book of short stories, a Bigfoot Knows Karate short stories between 3 and 4. And then between 4 and 5, we'll have the second side book that we're going to do. So we're going to have additional artists working on the other stories that Casey and I are writing together to expand the mythos, because let's be honest, it's going to take me forever to do these books. They are. And so I want to keep the character relevant by having other books out there.
That's interesting. I mean, it's listen, if you've never drawn a comic book and you want to, it's really hard. It takes a lot of
really hard.
Like, and I think like we need to like, and there's great tools that make it. I know I see you peeking.
I see it now. I see what's going on now. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Gary's in full he's full mosh up mode here apparently.
Full mosh up.
Amazing.
And it's but it's it's real tough. Like so I'm going to ask the question of like, how long did it take you to do this issue?
Okay, from like just the artwork, or are we talking about just?
I'm not going to talk the story part because I'm sure that you and Casey probably bandied the thing back and forth. And
yeah, that was an amazingly odd collaboration, and I mean that in the best way possible. But co-writing something that you created by yourself and co-writing with somebody else. I couldn't ask for a better collaborator. I mean, right. Period. He was the right person for the job, and I'm so glad to have him on board and that he gets to flex his muscles as a writer over the next few issues. But like just the artwork, I started the artwork in February and I finished it in October. Okay. So yeah. I mean, that's 30 pages.
Yeah,
that's
a long.
Yeah,
it's super tough. I mean, I think that was one of the major decision sort of like structural ideas that we came up with to do our book, the United Forces Crash Over, to make sure we're giving these creators 6 pages. Like we're asking just for 6 pages. Like you can you can clear out 2 weeks in your schedule, you can bang out 6 pages in total. Like it's no full color, full everything, but it's like that, but you now multiply that by 5, and it's not just 5 versions of 2 weeks. It really does. And then you have a job and a life and family and all those things that they really do take their price. So how do you how are you like mentally like partitioning yourself for you still have 4 issues to do? It's not like it's not like it's a long way.
I know.
I'm not sandbagging you here.
No. But it's a marathon, not a sprint, and I got to remember that.
Yeah, right.
It's okay. Well, listen. Okay, first off, like I said, my wife never had been around me when I was making comics. We got married about 7 years ago. I was just coming to the tail end when she moved in with me. Okay. So she never had that experience. And so when I said, are you sure you want me to do this? She did not understand what she was getting herself into. So she spent 8 months or whatever going, you come into bed? I mean, you know what I mean?
You said I could work on this comic.
I know exactly what you mean, man. I know exactly.
Once the Kickstarter happened, okay, and I'm not saying money talks, bullshit runs a marathon type statement, but once the Kickstarter happened and she saw all the things that we'd been doing, because like I said, we had a PR person we were working with on this, you know what I mean, to help push the book out when, get us on podcasts and articles and things like that. I was testing letterers, for sound effects letterers. I mean, I'm going through like 5-6 of these guys, looking through them all. And all talented people, but none of them were the right person. I ended up doing all the SFX myself, because nobody was getting where I wanted to go, and I can't stand onomatopoeia and trying to get that proper. So I figured I'd get somebody to do it, but I couldn't do it. So there was all these parts and pieces, and my wife's sitting there scratching her head going, what the hell are you doing? And then when we did the live launch for the Kickstarter, and she's in the live and the Instagram, and she sees like at the end 208 people watched us do this live, and she saw all these people getting into it, and we had people jumping into the live stream and talking with us. We were cross-pollinating audiences, basically trying to get as much reach on this live stream as possible. And she saw the artwork we were doing and writing and all this stuff like that. But then she saw from my day job all the parts and pieces, and she said to me when it was over, she's like, it snapped. I see what the hell I finally see what the fuck you're doing. Yeah. And she's like, it makes sense. And when she read the book, I mean, like that, she like tear came down her eyes. She's like, oh my God, you know? So now it's different. You know, when I said to her today, I said, I may have to do this podcast on Tuesday night and we've got people in town. And she's like, go do the podcast. It's basically work. You got to take care of work. You go do your work.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, didn't bat an eye. Now, obviously we pre-recorded. So, but you know what I'm saying? It was, I think once that lever, the lever switched in her head, it made more sense to her, I think. So I've got her on my side.
Mm-hmm.
And having Sarah on my side means all the difference in the world. I don't feel like this is going to be an uphill battle fight for her trying to understand what I'm trying to do. She sees it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so having her with me, and this is my point, having her with me, I think I'm doing the next 4 issues. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be a lot of work, but it's gonna be awesome, you know. And then when we are done with that, then we can make a decision on if we're going to do another arc after that. We'll bring in an artist, you know, to take over those art, you know,
sure.
an arc here and another arc there for different artists. I'll do a one shot from time to time. I'm happy to do that, but I got a noir hitman story thing that I need to do after Bigfoot is done. So I got to get that out of my system. So
yeah. And that's the thing was, you know, I talked to a lot of different creators, you know, who are doing, you know, the whole thing, you know, the top to bottom stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I go like, so when are you going to consider getting someone else to do to do the artwork for the story? And they kind of look at me like, you know, like it's a very hard thing for many people to divorce the ego of the act of being the front man, you know, compared to being the songwriter. And it's like, so it's a, you know, like, I mean, you know, we all love Elton John, but like without Bernie Taupin, we don't have a lot of really amazing songs. And, you know, and some might say that Bernie Taupin had a better run, you know, through that whole period, you know, versus what Elton had to deal with. So it's kind of like, okay, so take your money, hire someone to do the artwork, hire the best person you can afford, who's the right fit, and put that energy into the story, make that story better, build that visual brand, you know, higher and, you know, so I really thoroughly approve what, you know, how you're kind of going at this, because you're 45, dude.
Yeah. Not getting any younger, man. I want to be able to enjoy some of this time too.
Yeah.
I love drawing, but I like to draw at my pace. You know, listen, if things work out properly, I can do a page a week. Okay. Right. If things work out properly, I can do a page a week, but things don't always work out. I travel for work. I mean, I some weeks you just, hey man, I don't want to draw. Yeah. You know, I mean, it doesn't happen to me too often, but like, yeah, I mean, during issue 1, I had about a 2-3 week period where I was like, no, I'm done. I'm done. I'm taking a break. I'm going to sit on my butt and watch terrible television, you know, and I did, and I needed that. So look, I'm not in a position to do a monthly comic. It's just an impossibility, you know, but so the best I can do is try and get this out as quickly as I can and make it look as good as possible with good communication to the audience over Instagram and Twitter and that sort of thing. And then, you know, keep them invested in it, kind of how we did in the beginning, but, you know, just share a bit here and there. I love to do live streams, you know, and to do live draws and talk about the character here and there. And people enjoy that. And it's fun for me because, I mean, I hate drawing in a vacuum. It's nice to draw with your friends online and having some fun with that. Hell yeah. So just to try and do it that way. And then having the side books allows it to keep the character more relevant in their mind, the reader, you know, and it allows us to work with some other artists. Frankly, I mean, the idea that I get to, you know, do some stuff with me, like, look, this is all like different stuff we received. This is from Luis Tomas right there. I mean, that's just gorgeous, you know, and it's gorgeous. And then like you showed you the pieces by Adam and Matt, but I mean, like look at that by Cami from Comorian King or Zip Alegria right here with I mean, like I'm going to do, you know, I hope that I get to work with all these people on short stories, and then hopefully maybe one of them will be the one who takes the next arc, you know, or there's other amazing artists I've come across over Instagram that, you know, I've forged friendships with, or at least acquaintanceships with, you know, that we can get to know each other and, you know, see their work. I mean, I've got talking to a colorist right now who's who's doing a test for to see if they are going to be the colorist for Adam's side book. You know, I mean, so, and the cool thing is, like, we did do well on our funding. I mean, I asked for $1,000 to cover my basic costs because it was only me doing any of the work, you know, and then being able to pay Casey for his work afterwards when it's done. But like but we were able to fund enough money to where we can fund Adam, you know, for a book that we're doing 2 books from now. That, you know, that's a really cool thing that we have that funds available to be able to go ahead. Once the issue 2 script is done, I'll start drawing that one, and Casey and I'll finish. We'll write the side book script, and Adam can be working on that while I'm working on issue 2. So we can also get the books done a little bit faster as well, and there'll be less time in between. I'm hoping to be able, you know, instead of a book taking 8-9 months in between issues, it'll start being more like a 4-month wait between books, you know, is the goal, so that people aren't going to have to wait as long for my slow ass. And I mean, I know I'm holding up the system, but hey, I can only do what I can do. Well,
but I think, you know, I think one of the great latitudes that the crowd-funded sect of comics, the indie sect of comics, is I don't think there's the same expectation of, I'm getting this book every month, right? You know, like, I don't think we have that sort of, I think everyone is sophisticated enough to expect the book, you know, on the frequency that the creator is creating it, versus just screaming and yelling and then throwing up their arms and running away.
I think at this point in time, people are just happy enough to have a book come out when they say it's going to come out, and not 1.5 years, 2.5 years later after it was funded. But that's not another argument.
That's so, that, you know, like that reality was so scary to me, because like I have, you know, I've backed a few campaigns that you know, of books that, you know, for friendly reasons or for sheer interest reasons.
Sure.
And I think, like, during this, like, when we were ramping up this Kickstarter, I go like, wait a minute, like, as a guy, you see, like, here's the things that you funded. I'm like, that was like October of 2020, like, or this one was like June of 2020. I'm like, and then you go in your email, like, did I miss an email? Like, oh no, they haven't done anything. And I'm like, what's going on? And like, we had a past guest, Mike Pennick, who wrote and drew, did all the artwork for his own comic book, and had a smash success. Like, he put his first book out there and crushed it, like, really, really big.
That's awesome.
Unbelievably cool, super guy. And like, and not that, and Mike's no famous Amos. Like, nobody's like, oh, I got to get my Mike book. Like, he's just a dude, but he's, you know, he made his own comic and everyone's really into it. But man, awesome. His printing nightmares, Dan, you wouldn't believe. Like, they didn't contact him to say that your book is done. Like, it sat on the floor for 3 weeks until he was calling them saying, hey, where's my book? Because they were 3 weeks past their set delivery. He gets it.
Oh no.
6 pages or something are out of order in the book. So they're like, oh, sorry, we'll reprint. So they reprint. Then they don't say it's done again. And he gets it, and 2 pages are out of order on the book. So it was like this one thing after another. And then finally he's like, listen, they wouldn't reprint it a third time. So he's reprinting it on his own dime. And he's shipping the incorrect book with just the 2 pages out, with the handwritten note saying, listen, hey, you're going to get the other one, and I'm sending it to you. It's all out of my own pocket, but I want to honor my word to say that the book is getting to you.
Respect.
And it's like super important, but like, it's just one of these things. I said, well, listen, when you do next job printing with someone, demand an actual stapled proof that they sign off on, and then when you receive it, you sign off on it if it's okay, and that's the contract. If it's not that way, they keep reprinting until it's right, and there's just no ways around it.
I'm using Comics Wellspring for my printer for this book.
Well, that's not the printer who did this, so you're okay.
Okay, good. So I didn't think so by the way you were describing it, but I'm using Wellspring for this book, and I gotta say, just a funny story about the uploading process. I had the cart open on my browser for about 3 days. Okay.
Yeah.
As I was going, because I got 4 editions of the book, 2 regular, 2 covers for the regular edition, the 32-page book, the 30-page story, and then the 44-page book, the deluxe edition. And so there's 4 different editions with the covers. And so I had, I sent them all this money and a lot of it, to get all these books, like, cause there's like 350 books that needed to get printed, or some 360 books that needed to get printed. And, I send them the books. I send them the order, I send them the money. And then I forgot to include my Dropbox link or my Google Drive link to the book. And so I immediately go, shit. And I said, because email customer support, I'm an idiot. Yeah, Can somebody please get in touch with me? And the lady who got back with me the next day, she's like, hey, you can just email me the links. So I emailed her all the Google Drive links or whatever they were. And then I called her up and was like, hey, listen, I just want to make sure I got 4 links for you. And she walked me through everything that I needed to know. And
they're good there.
Good vibes, vibes.
I printed with them once, and they get with you. They communicate. It's great.
That's what I needed. Back in the day, I don't know if y'all remember ComExpress. Do y'all remember ComExpress?
Yes, there's the name. Yeah.
Jody D. She was my girl over at ComExpress. She was the customer service person, and me, and there was another cat named Mike Morrow who did a book called Atom Bug back in the day. And so he goes, man, I was trying to reach Jody D today, to find my book. And you go, oh yeah, Jody D. Yeah, no, she was there earlier because I was having a problem with my book. Like everybody knew Jody D. And she's probably out of the business by now. And she's like, why are these people talking to me about me on some podcast? But
there's your book. There's your comic title. You could do Searching for Jody D.
Searching for Jody D. I want it. I just want to make a T-shirt for all the old school indie people who says, Jody D's my gal or something like that. They'll know what I'm talking about. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wealth of challenges that present. And listen, the challenges that are presented now are really, really easy compared to the challenges that existed 30 years ago. So it's a very different world in that respect. But the problems of the day are the problems of the day. You can't compare the two, in real time.
But there was this kid in 1991, 92, 93, whatever. There was this kid in Houston. His name was Chris Rivera. Christopher Rivera, if you're listening, thank you for doing what you did. Chris had his own independent comic book, called Alien Judgment. He did 3 issues, 3 issues, and he had and it was photocopies with like the neon cardboard paper that you used to get, with like this. The first issue was green neon, and the second issue was orange, and the third one was pink neon, and that was the cover, black and white insides, and just the black and white, or the black ink on the neon paper. Alien Judgment, 3 issues, Houston, Texas. First person I ever saw make their own comic book like that.
Oh, that's great.
Game changer. Game changer. We went to college together. Okay. He was a couple of years older than me. We went to college together and ended up working at the same screen printing shop together. And this guy has to deal with this goon kid staring at him going, oh, dude, you're the guy who made the comic. Completely starstruck by this guy who lives like a block over and eats the same cafeteria food I do, But I thought he was the coolest person walking, and we're sitting next to each other drawing T-shirt designs for this T-shirt company. You know what I mean? And that's and I'm like, he's real. He's real. The guy who made the comic is real. Anyway, so it was. Yeah, Chris, wherever you are, I hope you're doing well, man. Anyway.
It's crazy because one of the co-creators, Blake Seals, he actually published Phil, our other co-host, and Gary's comic when we were in college.
Okay.
So he dealt with printers, he got the covers, he got an illustration from Bill Sienkiewicz for the second issue.
And Marshall Arisman.
And Marshall Arisman for the first one, Bill Sienkiewicz for the third one, and Tim Vigil for the third and never printed issue. But it's but he was legit trying, he made legit comics. There was a full color cover, black and white interiors, indie comic, and it was weird because it you look at it, you're like, how did he pull that off in 1990? Like in 1990, he pulled like a real
Right.
printed comic. Well, yeah, I mean money, but still, you have to get all the steps. You have to figure out how to, I mean, how many projects lay dead on the floor because you just don't know the next step?
Right.
And, and back then there was no Google. You couldn't
Right.
figure it out. There's nobody telling you. There's no 14-year-old kid saying, "Here's how you do the thing that you don't know how to do, old person." So like that it's a very, so it's totally cool. Here, let's listen Big and Gary so we can stare at his
Yeah.
model for a second.
Oh,
Yeah, let's do that. I was just checking it out. Oh, that's so cool, man. Gary, that's awesome looking.
Yeah.
That's awesome looking. I love it.
I
love it. That's great, dude.
Can you scroll down just a bit? Right between the top. Okay. Just curious. All right. Cool. Awesome.
The United Forces crash over.
Love it, dude. I love it.
Love it.
Yeah. So now how did you hook up with your co-writer? Because that's what, because here you are, a one-man band, with all your graphic design knowledge, your drawing passion. You've got a split degree in creative writing. So who do you need in this world, Dan? You can do it all.
No, that's not true. But okay. So, but remember, I'm used to writing dick and fart jokes, one issue at a time, right?
Sure.
That's what I was doing. This is this very big, cinematic, large scale project, that is. And I needed to get somebody who could handle like the size I was going. And that Casey was my man. And so Casey and I met through a project called the Comic Jam. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but the Comic Jam is an online workshop that takes artists and writers and randomly pairs them together. So so the writers come up with a theme, okay, and then they make a one-page comic they write a one-page comic, 6 panels, no more than 6 panels, and then based on that theme, and then that script is given to the jam, and then they randomly distribute the scripts to artists. Yeah. So that's Casey is one of the people who runs the Comic Jam. And I found them on Instagram and I was like, hey, this is really cool. Can I play with you guys? And so they let me play with them for a while. And this was back when I was first getting back to doing comics, even remotely dipping my toe in the water. And frankly, when I was teaching myself how to draw a comic book digitally. So I started doing stuff with the Comic Jam. First thing I did was something called Space Sharks or something like that. And it was a circling, I think is what the story was called, but it was about space sharks. And I had an absolute blast drawing that. And I was kind of hooked after that. And I just took everything I did and I did it. Every theme I got, I changed my art style to go with it, to change with the story. So the next time around, it was a haiku. I had to draw a haiku. And so it was all very geometrical and, it was all, it just like city buildings and like, all in blue tones and, rather than the over the top 90s style of the previous one. And then I did one like a Bruce Timm thing and, so on and so forth, just having fun. I mean, just getting comfortable drawing in different styles, which I do for work anyway. And, doing it, kind of finding my feet of how I want to do comics. And Casey and I got paired up together on when Steve Ditko died. The Comic Jam did a tribute theme to Steve Ditko, and so Casey had written this script that was awesome. It was one of the pages from Amazing Fantasy 15, but Jack Kirby had drawn him, not Steve Ditko. And it was using, do you remember when a few years ago there was a Jack Kirby inspired Spider-Man costume that he had like guns? You remember that? It was a fake thing that wasn't real. That was the character that we were using to be Spider-Man in these pages, like Kirby had drawn them. And it's notes from Stan Lee to Kirby saying he's too big here. He doesn't, this is wrong. I don't know about the gun, all that stuff. And then Stan Lee's going to what's his name? I just said his name a moment ago. Ditko, going to Ditko and saying, hey, Jack's not cutting the mustard on this one. We're going to need you to step in. And it's this whole interchange between, so it's like the comic panels, but it's the creators talking, and it was beautiful. it was just beautiful.
That's
And
cool.
it was an honor to work on. It was an absolute honor to work on. And we just became friends after that. We started talking, we talk on the phone or DM or whatever. And we did that for 3 years. And when this came around and I was working on Bigfoot Knows Karate, and Casey had volunteered, he goes, I'll edit for you. I said, man, I'll take it. I'll take it. And then as the editing went along, I was like, hey, why don't you just co-write? You're coming up with all these cool ideas anyway. Just come on and co-write with me. And he did. And we've been going ever since. So, and he's got his own book as well. He's got another book. Hold on. I've got it around here somewhere, don't I? Here it is. He's got his own book called Voodoo Child.
Cool.
Okay. That he does with Pete Woods. And that he writes for, and Pete Woods does the artwork. Not that Pete Woods, the other Pete Woods.
Right, the
other one. And so, yeah, he's got that book. Here's the other one of that, Voodoo Child.
Oh, cool.
So I've got to read issue 2. This part of my homework this week is to read issue 2.
Nice.
And so Casey has his book over there. And then, like, I've got my thing with Drew Edwards that I'm working on. So we have our own little projects that we're doing. But he's helped me with Bigfoot in a big, big way. And I mean, yeah, he's Casey.
Well, that's cool, man. Like we've had the Word Bros. We've had Bob and Kevin who do Metal Shark Bro, and like they write everything together. Like they do the Sand Pirates. They've got a whole bunch of different projects and they write together. Like it's a writing duo.
That's cool.
And I think it's totally cool. Like it's a really because like I mean I like writing novels, so I don't don't sit and write novels with other people. You sit alone.
Sure.
And you bang away at the computer. So, but it's really interesting, and and there's been a fair amount of actually like collaborative writing that had to happen on our comic because different people. Like I gave a little bit of framework to people to do their chapters. Some people wanted a little more work, and so it's a very interesting process getting to work with somebody on a writing level, because it's not the same as the writer working with an artist who's like, hey, can you make sure you do that thing with the thing that I wrote on the thing?
Right. Yeah, it's totally different than my experience with Bond. Like I loved working with Bond. He was great, man. Yeah. I mean, but he was the artist. I was the writer, and it was, and they were, and so I let him do his thing and he'd let me do my thing. And we didn't really mess with each other too much. If he had an idea that he thought would improve the panel, he'd call me. That's and cool. We talk it out. But beyond that, like with Casey and I mean, I write in blue, he writes in red. Whatever we land on gets turned to black. You know what I mean? And I mean, I came in with the first issue with basically like a Bible. I was like, here, this is what I'm thinking. And he was like, and I said, but I need help. And, I need help with the pacing this fight, and how are we going to get from here to there, and and that's where Casey really came in, because he sees things so much bigger than I do, and like the story starts so minute with the first issue, and by the end of the first issue, once we've kind of gotten through the twist and all of that, you're like, and I knew where we needed to go. I just needed help getting there, and so it's amazing. Like the pacing of the big fight scene that's all Casey, right? And like all that great, all the, some of the twists and turns through that's him, man. I mean, I can't tell you who wrote what dialogue anymore at this point, because, I mean, we're both, he'll do his sweep of the script and I draw it. And then when it's time for me to go back and letter it, I'm like, well, we can trim some words here and there, I mean, how do we get this as succinct as possible? Because with as much stuff as we have to get into an issue, and I told him, I'm like, 30 pages max, I'm out after that. I can't do it because there's not enough time. Think of it like a Seinfeld episode. You get you get to the scene, you get to the meat, you get out. You get to the scene, you get to the meat, you get out, because
get out early.
Exactly. Because what you don't want to do, we don't have room to drag, we don't have room to, I'd love to sit there and, I'd love to write, the William Faulkner-esque, story that, I need Hemingway timing right now. You know what I mean? Boom, boom, boom. Let's get it done.
Like, nothing will make you a tighter writer, not intending the rhyme there, but then having to draw the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, like I can't afford to draw 17 panels. I can't afford to draw 3 more pages. Like it is a matter of this sort of succinct approach to how you can tell a story. You know, and I think as a writer, I always try to like keep that in mind, because like, you know, my first things were always, you know, me having to draw it or a script. I'm like, ugh, you know, when you get the script and you're like sitting there counting the amount of figures you have to draw on that page, you're like, Jesus, there's 37 figures. That's a lot. Oh, that's a long day, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't draw 2-page spreads.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't do it, you know, because I'm not willing to punish myself like that. And then here we are this morning, Casey and I are on the phone talking about issue 2. I'm like, I'm thinking we need a 2-page spread here. And he just I heard the dead silence on the other end. You mean you're willing to do a 2-page spread now? You weren't willing to do a 2-page spread before? No. And I'm like, it makes sense here though,
right.
You know, because we can tell the story at a, you know, faster doing one big 2-page spread with like with a smattering of panels running through it, rather than doing, you know, because you got to think big at that moment in time, you know. But then if you do a 2-page spread, you're locked in. Your page order can't change now. You can't add a page in here or there, because then you screwed up your page flips. And so it's like,
it's super,
I said,
yeah,
go ahead.
No, it's super tough, man. I mean, like the actual like form of the comic book, like as you were saying, kind of alluding to earlier. I mean, it's what makes comics so unique and special, is that this limited format. And listen, you have an expansive format at 30 pages, but like, you know, a 20-page comic book, like you have to really, really get your story going and really tell the story quickly. And not to mention, like, listen, double page spread does not work if you have to turn the page. It's a disaster.
It'll ruin the whole damn thing. And you know, and there's the thing you said, like this medium, this limited medium, but it's like it's like making movies on a budget. It's the way I look at it. It's like making a TV show or a movie on a budget. And that's how I very much how I think about Bigfoot Knows Karate. This is in my head. This is an action movie. Well, probably like some anime or something like that, but you know what I mean? But it's like, it's an action movie, and it's got to have beats, and it's got to have, you know, you got to flip the page flips need to make sense in order to keep the story moving forward. And maybe I've overanalyzed it. Maybe I haven't, I don't know. But in my world, there's a movie there waiting to happen.
Well, I mean, you have to look at you have to treat the thing that you're doing with the greatest level of respect for whatever it is. Even if it is dick and fart jokes, like you have to make them the best dick and fart jokes that have been done. Like, it's not a matter of just going like, well, I did it. You know, I mean, you have to really, really be like smarter and wiser about what you're doing.
Serious about this dick joke. Come on, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, where were you when I needed you, though, on my first book? Because, like, you know, just doing it for the sake of doing it, you know, and that was my first book. Like, I mean, I'm sitting here as we were talking, I'm sitting earlier, I'm like, yeah, that first issue, I mean, I ended on a cliffhanger that I had no interest in ever finishing out. Right. You know, it was a 16-page book, you know, because I was exhausted and I just kind of petered out on it. You know, I mean, it was like the jokes were trite because they'd probably been used in every other movie before. Yeah. You know, when it came time to do the next issue, and I'm like, I've got to finish the issue now just to I finished the story just so I finished the actual story. So issue 2 was a continuation of issue 1 that was completely all the way twisted and stupid. Right. But I mean, those had to happen in order to progress forward. You know what I mean? And know where, okay, well, that was a mistake. Those are 2 issues that will never be reprinted again. Yeah. And, you know, we'll hide those in the, you know, away.
The vault.
But then, yeah, in the vault, exactly. But I've got the vault's right over there, actually. There's a box of all those books right over there. That's the vault. And then once I figured out, okay, 1 issue at a time, you know, no cliffhangers, none of that. It doesn't work. Think about it for that, you wanted to think about it like a Family Guy episode. You know what I mean? When the episode's done, reset, and we start the next episode, you know?
Yeah. And that's super, like, it's, you were talking about Shoot, man, like you have me like totally like hooked on one little idea there.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's just I'm just fascinated by all the things that we can, you are forced to. Oh no, that first issue, your 16-page issue is like, it's like when you're writing, like we've all done it. It's like when you're writing the sentence when you're a kid and you're running out of room and you start writing the letters smaller and narrower just to get that sentence completed so you don't run off the page or you curve it down. Like that's what those things are. You're like, how do I end this quickly?
Oh my God, you nailed it. I mean, hold on, I've got to find it.
No,
yeah, well, this is a reprint of it, but yeah, like by the time you get to the last pages, it's all like there's like 19 panels to a page, trying to fit it all in there, and
right, because
it's just terrible.
It would be easier to jam 19 panels in the page than to have to draw 3 more pages. So here I go.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 11 panels on that freaking page.
That's a lot.
I need to have my ass kicked for that. I mean, seriously, because like now I won't go over 6 panels in a page. Like I just won't. I mean, I figured my attitude is you can tell if you pace the book properly, you can read the entire book without needing word balloons in the first place. Right. Okay. That's the goal as an artist, I think, is to be able to tell the story visually without needing the word bubbles. But you obviously want the word bubbles because people got a lot to say, I mean, I respect the writing process, so I want the whole thing to be there. But it's like, but now how can you, when I've written, Casey's written, a page that is like, we got 6 panels there, 7 panels. Well, like, okay, but some of these seem a little repetitious. We could probably get this down to 5 and still tell the exact same story. And I'm looking at that stuff because every panel is time. And, and it's like, you get it. I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about.
Well, you've also solved a bit of the problem of the crowded page solution by going to 30 pages. Mm-hmm. So rather than saying, hey, we're going to do a 21 page book, you're saying we're going to do 30 pages. So you don't say like, oh, man, we need 7 pages. We need 7 panels in here. We need an 8-panel page. Like you don't have to have that because you can pace your thing out with a little more air around
breathing room. Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm the king of the 3-panel page. If you let me, I'll do 3-panel pages all day long. Yeah. And then I realize I can't do 3-panel pages all day long. I've got a book to finish out. So
once again, you don't want to keep drawing more pages. So it's
not cost prohibitive. It's cost prohibitive to do that. But then you'd also know I have like 1 splash page in the entire book.
Right.
So I mean, you got to have trade outs. There's 1 splash. And that's it. All the rest of them are purpose-driven pages. So
that's it's interesting because you say that like we only have 1 splash page in our book, but it's 5 different stories in the book. But nobody else everyone just said like they accepted the first splash page of the book. That's a splash page. We're opening up the comic book. And from that point on, everyone gets to draw pages at that point, which I think, and so like Bradley kind of did sort of a really kind of cool splashy page, but he kind of snuck panels into the design, which is really clever on his behalf. So you kind of get that.
Such a talent.
Oh, dude, he's ridiculously good.
He's such a talent.
He's so humble too.
Oh my God.
It's so funny. We were talking with him just the other day and we finished up the episode and we were hanging out talking and it was just like I feel like I'm just like hurling bricks of appreciation at him to like, hoping that they hit him hard enough in the head where he goes, oh, okay. Like I get it. Or I'm in, like he's just like, he almost won't take the credit for being really good or getting better. Yeah. You're like, dude, you're like, oh, you're good.
He's great. We did a live draw together several months ago now, but we did a live draw together over Instagram. And I felt like a better creator for having spent an hour or 2 talking with him. Yeah. Just because I felt like I learned a lot talking to him. I felt like I was not smart enough to take part in that conversation talking to him.
None of us are.
He's brilliant. I mean, the guy's he thinks about it at a higher level than I do.
Sure you know what I mean? He's like a programmer.
He's wonderful. I mean, and I love his style. I love his characters. I love just the whole damn thing. He's
gotten so much better in the last year. Like he has.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, and I really do credit a lot of that to me. No, I'm kidding. I credit a lot of it to his switching over and using Clip Studio. Like
Yeah.
his using that program has changed. And I'm and I'm going to make a quick little plug for you. And the one I think you should try it, because they have a vector tool.
Okay.
You can draw using their vector tool. So like,
All right.
the fidelity of their black and white, like their brush line and their pencil tool, is way better than Photoshop. Way better.
Sure.
So I'm just saying, like, if and when you ever say like, hey, maybe I should possibly, I think you will be able to speed your process time up a good 10 to 15%.
I'll tell you what, I'll look into it, because I draw in Illustrator, I do my color corrections in Photoshop,
Right.
and then I do my pagination work and stuff like that in InDesign.
Yeah.
But but I mean, Clip Studio, you're not the first person who's told me about the Clip Studio vector stuff. I mean, maybe it's worth doing a download and seeing if it'll work on my laptop. I mean, because it's got to work with my fingertip on my laptop, because that's the only way I draw.
It's so crazy that you're an actual guy who draws, and you like. I mean, listen. I know that like Cintiqs aren't free, but man, like drawing on a Cintiq is like drawing on paper. You get to actually draw. So it is a game changer. I mean, like Gary's putting all this together. Like,
I'm watching it. It's amazing.
Real time, and it's great. And he's doing that all on Cintiq. So
you're doing it on your Cintiq?
Yeah,
that's outstanding.
Yeah.
No, it's great. Yeah. Okay, I see better now.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks fantastic, man.
It does. It's
fantastic.
It's coming out so well. So, look at Gary drawing. So hey, here's a real serious question.
Sure.
Do you feel that you got and I'm gonna be real cheeky here. Do you feel you got a real unearned bump in attention by using Bigfoots in your story? Because the reason I say this, and I'm saying it jokingly, is we have a Yeti. We have Yeti or not as one of our stories in our thing.
Oh, okay.
And it is so interesting that every time we post anything which is hashtags with Yeti in there, we get so many people flocking to that post on Instagram, because there is a massive love for Bigfoots and Yetis out there in the interworlds. And I'm like, well, you're straight up Bigfoot. So like,
yeah, I didn't think about it much when I was coming up with the character, what the effect of that would be. Right. I did not realize what the impact of a Bigfoot character would do to just the general populace on Instagram or Twitter. In time now, I realize the power of the Sasquatch Yeti Bigfoot community. Mm-hmm. I am buddies with Bigfoot Actual on Instagram, who
is definitely a Gray Star page on for many times. Yeah.
We've actually done a phone call. Very nice Bigfoot, and I really do appreciate Bigfoot's enthusiasm for Bigfoot Knows Karate, and we've had. I'm actually talking to a couple other Bigfoot properties about doing a Bigfoot summit on Instagram, where we actually talk about take those in. There's like, and some of them I've talked to, some of them I need to make contact with, but I want to do a Bigfoot like summit, basically, where you've got like, I've talked to the people at Roz and the Big Man, which was a Kickstarter that about a couple of months ago, where it's like a Bigfoot is the big man and Roz is an alien from Roswell, and that's the concept of the comic book. And then there's another guy I need to reach out to, the Savage Sasquanaut, I think it is. He's a Sasquatch in space, and then there's these cats out in Canada that there's these cats out in Canada that have sorry, my phone's ringing. It's a Laser Blast from Flash Gordon, the movie. Anyway, so they have a book called Sasquatch Klondike, and then like Bigfoot Actual, he's all about being involved in it in some way, shape, or form. So we're talking about doing something like that at some point, and just kind of getting all those kind of projects together, just so we can all talk about what we're doing and introduce our stuff to each other's audiences. I mean,
for sure. And I mean, I think we, bringing Bradley back into the conversation, like
he's got his Yeti.
because he's got one as well. So clearly
Yeah.
he's done the math, and he
Yeah.
knows that the Yeti is a convergent point for the attention span of. I'm trying to use Bradleyisms here, but yeah, I mean, you should definitely yeah, I mean, it's cool. Our Yeti is not so much pro Yeti in existing in our comic. It's more of the con Yeti in the let's kill the Yetis. So
Gotcha.
it's a very different approach. Yeah,
Sorry.
I know.
Yeah,
Laser blasts are everywhere.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, don't worry about it, dude. Yeah, it's no, but I mean, it's interesting, and because I only noticed it because we would get this attention when we would post anything, and then I'm thinking, oh, this dude's like probably just like swimming in Bigfoot love.
There, it's amazing because, like, a Bigfoot actual, fantastic Sasquatch post. They're cool too. The Shire Nut, this rapper from New Orleans, Louisiana, has a book, has a song called Bigfoot. Okay. That he connected with me in Bigfoot Actual, and so like he's got his song Bigfoot. Dun, dun, dun. Can't rap, but it's amazing. Like I'll use his music on my stories and stuff like that. And he's so it's funny, the Bigfoot connection. Also, I did not know that Ice Cube did a Bigfoot Sasquatch song years back. I had no idea, and so. It's
short, buddy. You can rap. I heard you just right there.
Oh, it's you know it. Yeah, I don't know the words to
well,
go.
Here's a little bit of a. You can use it, not use it, but if you're having this get together of the Bigfoots, Bigfoots live in mountains. It's got to be called the Summit.
The Summit.
Yeah.
There you go. That's awesome. Yeah. No, if we could do, we can only get 4 people on an Instagram live, but maybe we'll work out what are we in right now? I'm sorry.
You know what?
A StreamYard situation.
And if you figure it out, we'd be happy to host you and
that'd be amazing. And then you can have your Yetis.
We would happy to host the Summit, and we could, in all the forms, and we could have, I think, 11 people. So you could have quite the Summit if you want.
Wow, that would be amazing. All right, if y'all are up to it, I can get those wheels rolling in the spring, and we can make that happen.
Great. We could host it and let you guys have your thing, and and then and disseminate it. So
and I appreciate that. This indie community on Instagram, on the podcasting, everybody, it's just such a really cool, kind community. I mean, there's Facebook and there's Twitter, and those are different animals completely. Sure. But I have to say, I am so unbelievably grateful to the Instagram indie comic community, especially. Everybody just supports each other so much, whether from the podcasting side or the other creators doing covers for each other, or fan art, or just reading each other's scripts, or just supporting each other. I mean, I can't believe how supportive and kind everybody is. I mean, I just wanted to say that out loud, because like with what you're saying right now, I who does that? I mean, I see people on this Facebook groups and stuff like that, on the indie Facebook groups, and they're mean to each other. They just tear each other down, and it's like, I don't understand it. So my attitude always has been with indie comics is like, I don't look at everybody as competition, because when you succeed, it helps the entire community. So why would I, you know what I mean? So there's no reason to chop anybody's feet out from underneath them, and so
it's a rising tide, man. Like there's so much you can do of your own thing. Nobody's going to nobody's going to do your comic. It's just not right. So just do your comic. Don't worry. And I think if everyone's, it's like all on board to be supporting that, everyone else around them, you end up having a much better, discourse. You have a much better environment, and in a world of greater comics out there. And it doesn't matter if you're doing it for image or you're doing it for yourself. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's Gary, it. We're lucky. That's all I'm saying.
We're going to look at Gary's thing again. Gary.
Yeah, let's please.
Oh.
Enlarge and get rid of that ruler.
So badass.
Get rid of that ruler. Get rid of the ruler. There you go. Nice, dude.
That's so rad, man. Oh, that's so cool.
I like your take on the Bigfoot, man. That looks cool.
It's great.
It's very cool, man. I love it.
Fun.
Dude, super cool.
Gary,
that's badass, man.
Well done. Well, Dan, is there anything else you want to say? Is there anything you're in the breather room, you're prepping the next book, and so you're going to be going back in, I'm sure, in the new year.
Yeah. So, I mean, first off, just thank you to the 212 people who backed the comic. Thank you to the 70 people who did fan art. Thank you to the, I don't know, I did that, my top 9 on Instagram. I haven't posted it yet, but like the 18,000 likes or whatever the hell we got over the year or whatever it is.
Nice.
And all the, you know, everybody who helped out, you know, supported the book, shared, liked, all that stuff. Thank you. You know, I mean, Casey, Matt, Adam, all the artists who worked on the covers for the book. I mean, just amazing. You know, I'm really looking forward to people reading it at this point now. It's we've had about a dozen people read the book, you know, who've gotten advanced copies and just, you know, for editing purposes or whatever. We filmed the director's commentary. I want to talk about that real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can't wait for everybody to read it. The book will be out sometime in January, end of January. You should be receiving your copies, okay? Which falls right in line of the timeline that we said it would happen. But we recorded the director's commentary a couple of weeks back, I think right after Thanksgiving, actually. And I finally went back and like edited it together and listened to it. And I think my pride for this whole book jumped after I got to sit down and actually speak about the book and hear other people talking about it. But if you pick up the book, if you backed the book, or if you get a copy later on, in the deluxe edition, it's the 30-page book. And then you got a 10-page fan art gallery, and then there's some extra sketches by me, and then there's the director's commentary link, and it's a QR code. And you'll scan the QR code, and it'll take you to a video on your phone of myself and Casey Allen, Dennis Valencia, Kat from the High Hill Gamer, and Kenrick from Spoiler Country, and we sit down and we talk about the book at length. And it's such a cool concept because it's something that I've wanted to do for years. How do you do a director's commentary on a comic book? I can never figure out how to make that happen. I've been talking about it for years. I've been wanting to do this.
Right.
And when I finally put together a YouTube and a QR code and we can just make the whole thing happen that way, mind blown. And I'm like, I could not believe that we got it together, and the video actually is not too bad. And so I'm really excited for people just to read the comic. But if you want to go dive deeper and check out a 2 hour and 45-minute video about a comic book, it's there, man. It's there for you to delve into and listen to. It's there. You can't miss it. So it's I don't know, from a it's just a point of pride for me. I've been just really excited about that tier and the Kickstarter that we got to do that. So yeah, I mean, but hope to have an online market for the books after the Kickstarter comes out. I'm probably going to do something through Comics Wellsprings News Shop where people can buy the books from them. Other than that, book 2 is on the way. You know, we got the side book with Adam Caswell doing the artwork. I'm so excited about that. So Casey and I are jazzed. And if you need a dick and fart joke at some point in between, Halloween Man Meets Latex Avenger will be coming out sometime in the middle of 2022. And so by Drew Edwards, who's the creator of Halloween Man, myself, and then Paulo Hernandez, who is doing the artwork on that. So
That's great.
yeah, so I mean, it's like, it's funny because you get to play, you got your first character, the first baby, right? And he's, that I never really thought would be out in the modern era. He has no business being in the modern era. Worst character to ever walk the face of the earth. He's such a dick. And he's just the total douchebag asshole, that you go out to you and think, oh, it'll be fun to invite. Hey, let's invite Latex Avenger to go get a beer with us tonight. 3 beers in, he's the loud jerk in the bar who's like hanging on your buddy's girlfriend. Hey, I like you. I mean, this is the character that we've created, and he's now coming back so he's about to get handled very well by Dr. Lucy Chaplin in that book. She's an amazing character. He's going to put him in his place. So I'm excited about that.
Very
but
cool.
it's weird to see your first character and now your current project, and they're kind of existing at the same time, which makes me laugh that this is all kind of come full circle this year. So that's all I got. That was a long answer. Do I have anything else to?
It's great when you can do multiple things. To be able to do multiple things is the real. It's a great test, but I think it's when you are able to really put yourself out there in the world. So bravo, man, bravo.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, dude, thank you very much for making it. Yeah, it's been great. This has been a while coming, and there have been plenty of people who said, get Dan on the show. So I'm really happy that this has worked out. That's Gary. Gary's doing a cool drawing. I'm sure we'll be posting it.
I would, yeah, please. You got to send me that when you're done, Gary. I got to see that in all its glory for sure. But yeah, Gary, Alex, thank you both so much for having me on today.
Thank you for coming on.
It's really been our pleasure. And yeah, I guess I'll just finish this all up. So whatever, like, click, subscribe, yada yada, blah blogs, read the doobly doo. Dan's information will be in there. Yeah, man, we're really happy that everyone tuned in. And we're really happy that this Kickstarter is over.
Congrats on the 18 grand, by the way.
The 18 grand. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to
amazing.
That's awesome.
That's the new boat right there.
Can't believe it happened.